So welcome everyone today. I have the pleasure of spending some time with Karen Murphy. She is the president of FVM, an advertising and branding agency. And she's got some interesting perspectives on leadership and accountability, which is certainly the goal of my podcast here. Why won't they do what I tell them to do? So Karen, thank you for coming on board with us today. Let's get to know you a little bit. So tell us about you a little and about FVM.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, John. It's great to be here. So I'm Karen Murphy. President at FVM Advertising. So we are a small marketing agency in Greater Philadelphia, specializing in advertising, branding, campaigns, content, really full service, whatever our clients need in terms of sort of messaging and getting the word out about their business. So we're a small group, but we are comprised of copywriters, designers, developers, and marketing strategists. Who sort of help our clients with whatever their marketing needs might be.
That's great. So how did you find this career? How did you find FVM? I know you've been there for a while. I've got a couple more questions about that, but how did you find advertising and branding?
Yeah, so I've actually been at FVM since 2003, right fresh out of college. Was my first job. I wanted to work at an agency. I knew I was interested in communication, sort of business writing. I kind of came at that from in high school and then definitely in college. Really enjoyed, this is going to sound so nerdy, but I enjoyed editing my friends' papers. So the girls that I lived in apartments with would come over and say, hey, can you just make this sound better? Like, you're really good at fixing papers and just making it sound better and smarter and just more cohesive. So I would get a pen, because in the old days we used pens and paper, and I would mark up everyone's papers, get rid of sentences that were repetitive, reword some things, and I just felt like I just really loved that. I just felt like I enjoyed sort of sifting through information and making it easier for people to understand. So I love taking complex technical subjects and sort of whittling them down to make them really easy for other people to understand. And that's a lot of what we do at FVM. So we, work with clients across industries. So anything really technical stuff from like specialty chemical, industrial manufacturing, software, all these sort of complex topics. And what me and my team do is work with our clients to make them easier to understand and sort of hit the nail on the head with what is that message, that people need to hear right off the bat to get their attention, and finding those right people with advertising and targeting methods, especially digital, to just find those right people and hit them with the exact right message in an ad, on a website, whatever it may be. So so I sort of got into the industry from just an interest in...
That's an interesting, you figured out very early, if you knew in high school that you were good with technical writing or editing or that type of thing, you found a strength very early on and then leveraged that into what you're doing now.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I didn't know right away what that would mean for a job. So I'm like, what is this? I'm not a creative. I'm not really into creative writing. I'm into like organizing and business writing. So I was lucky enough to get an internship in PR, actually. And I really enjoyed that. So I learned on write press releases, a lot of, sort of communication with editors. I enjoyed a lot of that. But then I had 2 internships in PR. And then my 3rd internship in PR, I realized that it was with an agency that had advertising on the other side of the house. So it was, the PR group and the advertising group. And that particular job, I was calling, I actually had a cold call journalists and try to get them to feature our clients' products in their articles. And everyone's hanging up on me. It's annoying. Like they don't want to talk to me.
You had that experience cold calling. There you go.
Yeah, it was really rough. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, look at the advertising group over there. They're not fighting for their space. They are got it paid for, and they've got cool designers, and look what they're doing with cool copywriting. I want to try the ad side. Let me see if I can, that space is already paid for. I'm not fighting anyone for it, but it's using a lot of the same skills, and it brought in sort of the design side, which I've always been fascinated with. So I basically just sent my resume around to every ad agency I could find in the Philadelphia area and lucked out, landed at FVM. So with Paul Fleming, who's the F, and Lori Van Meter, who's the VM. So they're our founding partners. And truly they became my mentors. And I learned, everything I know from those 2. And then, I think the end of 2021, they retired and then left the business to me and Coleman Rigg. So he's my partner. He's our EVP of client services.
Hmm.
and we're in year 4. So far so good.
Well, that's great. It's great that you found what you love, and it's amazing that you've really only had one company that you've worked
That's
with, and you grew up in the
crazy.
company. So that's more than 20 years experience. So that says something for you, and you've grown all the way into the president of the organization. What has kept you there? What has been the most exciting thing about FVM that's made you say, "This is where I'm building my career," and continue and continue and continue, and now you're running the business?
Yeah, great question. So I would say the first thing is sort of the Paul and Lori. They just created a wonderful culture with really smart, inquisitive people. Always working with creative folks like copywriters and strategists and designers that sort of challenge. They challenge your thinking, challenge each other, and are just good humans. It's just always been a really positive work environment, and I knew I was lucky to stumble upon that, at first shot. So that was one side of it, but then the other side is I've never really been bored. I've never had a boring day in this job because it's always learning about a new client, um, learning, yeah, about their business, their challenges, their competitors. And then once you sort of, get to know that one, you keep working and you get better. And then another client comes in. And honestly, I think our history of our agency is in B2B, and we still do a lot of B2B work today. It's kind of our core. And it's such a nerdy thing again, but I love, like, there are not just companies that you don't have never heard of, but entire industries that you didn't realize existed.
Yeah.
So, like our one client, they manufacture the O-rings that go on landing gear of commercial aircraft.
Wow.
So, and it is fierce competition. There's trade shows, there's publications all about aircraft parts and all of the sort of nuance and the product detail that goes into that. It's like, how can you get bored learning about? It's like, wow, like this is the tiniest little part, and it's an entire industry that is built around it. So when I was an intern, I did intern at a B2B agency, and I felt like, oh, this is like business. Like you always hear, when you're young and just what, oh, Coca-Cola, and all these sort of Nike, these sort of consumer products, which is cool and everything, but I was like, whoa, this is like real behind the scenes business. That got me excited. So I think, yeah, I've just stuck here because there's always a new challenge. Plus, I think the entire field of marketing has completely changed from
Yeah.
the time when it happened to be when I started working in advertising. It was very, print focused. I remember very clearly some of our media partners that were, doing a print a media buy would say it would be mostly print buy, and they'd say, hey, if your client happens to have a website, we'll throw in banner ads for free.
Oh,
And it's like sometimes they didn't, and I was like, they don't have a website,
yeah.
and which is so different, than it's so bad, totally flipped today.
Well, I think you
Um,
shared with us a couple very important things for people out there looking for a career that they will love. So, one is you joined a company that had a great culture. You had
mhm,
great leaders that could mentor you. So, that's great that you should be looking for that. And then also continuous learning. You
yeah,
get exposed to new things all the time, and that's got to be exciting and uplifting and something that you can sink your teeth into new every day. So that's awesome. A good lesson for those out there building their career.
absolutely, yeah.
So before I ask you some questions about leadership and accountability, um, just tell us a little bit more about your ideal client. So if you're out there and listening to this podcast, Karen is a great partner to work with, and FVM is a great organization. Maybe you can tell us exactly I think, two kind of spaces that you're in, both the B2B, but then some of the other stuff. So tell us maybe what exactly that looks like.
Yes, yeah. So on, sort of traditional sort of B2B side of our business, I think our ideal client is really any industry, but I guess it's sort of B2B, obscure, technical. Like me, the more technical, the better. The more complex, the better. But we typically work with like mid-sized organizations, so revenue, I think like 300 million to 400 million is a good range for us because that group is sort of big enough, to have marketing discipline in house, They have very typically, competitive environment where they have to, they have very specific goals in terms of leads, leads by market, leads by quarter, awareness goals, but they're not so big that they have a whole in-house department. So sometimes it's a handful of folks in marketing who
Yep.
sort of set the strategy, and we help our clients do that as well. And then our team, they sort of work hand in hand to sort of execute throughout the year with advertising, trade show support, creating content, supporting sort of social strategy with videos, whatever it may be. So we're kind of the perfect fit for that mid-size client
Yep.
in B2B industries. So
Yep.
that's one side. And then the other side is, we have taken our branding expertise and really grown it. And it's just sort of happened organically. But we've got a tried and true process that has helped many clients, I think, in nonprofit. And also, we work with venture capital companies who they've, so for example, if they've merged two companies together and they need a company name, they need a brand identity, they need language, colors, the whole thing, and a website, like get them started. So that's a different, it's a much smaller company size typically,
Yep.
and maybe there's no marketing people yet, maybe there's one marketing person.
Yep.
So we sort of help them, get their feet under them with what is the ideal brand message for their environment, and then creating it and bringing it to life, which is so much fun, and like kind of getting them on their feet. So we've done that, like I said, for many local nonprofits. We happen to have a ton of experience with private schools, like K to 12 education,
Yep.
in particular Catholic schools. So we worked with the Archdiocese of Catholic Schools for many years, and now we've sort of continued that relationship with many of the individual private schools that need messaging help, that are competing for students. So yeah, to summarize, it's sort of the core, sort of B2B, mid-sized, organizations.
Complex.
And then, yeah, complex is sort of the key word for that. Yeah, we love that challenge. Um, and then on the other side, it's sort of branding and, helping companies get their feet under them with their brand message and, sort of marketing planning.
Great. That's awesome. So if you fit any of those, reach out to Karen because I'm sure that she and FVM can help you. So let's talk a little bit about accountability. So one of the biggest challenges business owners face is getting their people to do what they need them to do. We've talked a little bit about accountability, and I'd like to see, kind of your approach to having your team be able to execute on the things that you need the team to do for your success. So kind of maybe giving an overview, and if you have an example or something like that, that how you were able to get accountability, or you weren't, maybe there was a failure, particularly earlier in your career. You can share that with us as well.
Yeah, great question. So I would say it starts with surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you. I love that quote of
Okay.
I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to bring in those folks that are the best, at what they do. So I love, meeting with our designers and saying, how would you handle this challenge? How would you, and watching them sort of geek out, and do their thing. And the same with sort of copywriting and sort of creating, it's creating art, and it's really cool to watch.
Yep.
So I would say sort of bringing, surrounding yourself with people who are truly skilled at what they do, and it starts with mutual respect. So we're all professionals and we're all here working together to try to solve, a challenge together. But I want to hear from you, employee or individual contributor about what it is that you're passionate about, that you bring to the table. Let's hear it, from your side of things, and not, trying to act like I have all the answers. Like that's, we're here to work together. I'm really here to bring everyone together and
Yep.
get the best thinking out of the group, and just, make sure the challenge is defined clearly, and make sure everybody's in the role that they need to be. They're doing what they're best at, and they're doing sort of, what sort of gives them energy, and sort of trying to harness that and really get the best work out of people.
So you're pushing off them and get the people with the best skills to do the job that needs to get done. Make sure that they're contributing. Do you have like an introduction to a project that you have a team together to say this is doing it, and how do you get that? Because even if that's what you want, you don't necessarily get people to contribute particularly when they're new in their job and they're kind of a little hesitant?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, anytime we're faced with a challenge or we're kicking off a project, it does start off with sort of me, obviously getting from the client what are we trying to achieve, asking all those right questions that you just sort of learn over the years. Ask all the right questions up front to sort of define the challenge, and then come back, and this is important, is sort of spend the quiet time to think through. So we put it in, and if the simplest terms, if we're working on an individual project or a campaign, it's a brief, it's a creative brief, a Word document that we put together and kind of force ourselves to define it within parameters in which our team can work. So the first, part is defining the objective, and that's always has to be measurable. Whether or not you're physically going to go back and measure it is not the issue. It's, and a lot of times it's I want to increase awareness, of like a particular product or solution, or a client's company. And so, do we want more people to have heard of this, to be aware of this, as an option after we run our campaign than before? So it can be as simple as that, but clearly defining for ourselves, for our clients, and for the whole team working on it is like, what is this thing supposed to do? When we look back after we complete this, what are we going to use to judge if this was a success or a failure? And just having that one, that sort of one metric outlined first, I think is, sort of sets the tone. And then from there, we kind of define the strategy and sort of like what are the tactics that we're going to use to sort of make this thing happen. And that's where you can kind of get in, sort of all the information. But this is where my favorite nerdy part of, like, we call it here, like sifting through the sand, of determining what are the details that our creative team needs to hear, and what is kind of noise that's just going to get in their way, and sort of organizing it in a really, sort of digestible fashion, and giving them examples, that the client may have shared. So bringing them in on the problem and the challenge, and explaining where you need help. I think that's a big thing too, is sort of like, I can't solve this problem on my own. Like,
Yeah.
guys, like, here's the challenge. Like, let's try to figure it out together. And when you include people in that way, I think they're empowered and they get excited and they sort of own the challenge too. It's not just they're doing the job for me. I've painted the picture for them, and it's like, how are we going to help these guys? And then they're off and running, and it's so fun to watch.
It's music to my ears. You said a couple important words. We want accountability. We want people to do what they can do and add value to and create something great. But you said they have to feel empowered to own it. And if
Yeah.
they don't feel empowered, they're not going to own it and they won't choose accountability. So I think those are, it's obviously you found success as the president of FVM, but I think you're right on point there because that lines up with what I've learned as well as a business leader and how to get that accountability. So let's take a different tack. So let's talk about something that wasn't as successful in your career. Maybe in a time when you had frustration. Maybe it was a specific employee or a specific client that you were just like, geez, I can't get people to see what we could become here. And maybe you didn't have as good an engagement, and maybe what you learned from that. Because in our less successful times, there's often even more learning to learn to do something different. So, can you give us an example of something where you learned something through the trials and errors of some of the mistakes that we go through?
Yeah, great question. I think a good example would be, that this has happened to me a few times and definitely learned from it, is when working with creative professionals, like specifically a designer, in this case, so say we were working on website comps, and like something's just like not feeling right. And the client is sort of anxious, and I'm trying to get the best out of the designer and sort of meet the challenge. It can be tempting to just sort of just start to dictate, like, just make the headline bigger, and like, do this and move that around, and that looks too dark, and then when you do that, you're sort of taking, we just talked about, being empowered. You sort of take that out of their hands. So I have learned over the years the best way to communicate when something's not jiving, something's not, you know, you go, here's the important part about the original brief is go back to the original brief and determine objectively, is what this designer has outlined, are they objectively meeting all of the things that we outlined in the brief, whether it's I like the color or not, right? And if
Yep.
the answer is no, then that's a very clear, I can circle that and say, hey, in the brief, we said we were going to make this feel, very technical, or techy. And this feels a little bit more, a little bit more emotional, so let's go
Touchy
back to
feeling,
that.
sure.
Yeah, so being able to point back to specific things, that have been outlined. But if it is just a vibe thing, I think being really honest and just saying, hey, I'm not, I'm feeling like this isn't working, and let's talk about why, and instead of trying to grab the mouse out of their hand and just, dictating very specific, direction, like make this bigger, change the color, is like, oh, it's feeling a little bit like too loud, for what we're trying to do here. And then let the designer take that and translate that and say, okay, so as a designer, if we're feeling like it's too loud, I'm going to tone down XYZ. They will come up with solutions that I would never be able to do myself, because I am not a designer. I don't have that talent and that experience. So I just rely on them to say, hey, it's feeling like X instead of Y.
Yep.
Can you
That-
fix it? And
That's
they go off. Oh, okay, I see. Okay, it's a little too blah blah blah,
so.
and they
How did you
fix
figure
it.
that out, Karen? Because that's actually it's really insightful. As a leader, it's very difficult. I talk to business owners all the time, and it's very common when something isn't going right. Number one, you brought it back to something objective. It wasn't
Exactly.
just you. Now, sometimes there are things that are subjective. It doesn't feel right. There's something wrong here, but you didn't provide the answer. Most owners say they feel they have to have the answer, and then they say, well, no, try this, or they become more directive. And you're moving completely in the opposite direction to say, how can we do this?
Yeah,
And you're allowing them to contribute, and
yeah.
as opposed to telling them what to do. I don't know if that's something you've learned in how you lead, or you just know that you don't have the talent in that area, and so you
That's
defer
it.
no matter what.
I just know that the team I'm working, and I've been so blessed to work with this, and it's different creative professionals over the years, but truly it is such a cool group. I know that they know more about this than I do. So
Yeah.
for me to try to tell them, change this font, it's just silly. It's like, I can tell you what I think, the vibe we're supposed to be getting, but I need you to translate that. Just like, because yeah, honestly, it's just awareness that I don't have those skills. And again, that's why you want to surround yourself with people smarter than you, because they together you make it all better.
Do you think you would have done that if you had a background in expertise or had 5 years of experience in designing? Do you think you would be able to still push that away and say, help me understand what could we do differently here to make this even better? Or do you think you would have more of an inclination to step in and kind of become more directive?
Good question. Yeah, like if I did have that design expertise, would I feel like probably naturally it would be a little bit more of trying to fix for them. But having done this for as long as I have, I probably would have had to course correct and said, no, 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 let them do it.
Yeah.
Because if why are they here? If they're on your team, you brought them in, to bring their gifts and talents, and why aren't you letting them, show that? And so what, if they take a stab at it and it's off, you can always, and this comes back to having our creative director is amazing, our John Tron, can go to him and say, hey, the deal that we're trying to hit here, it is not working, can we work with her, our designer, to like, so there's always, it's surrounding yourself with people you trust,
Yeah.
people who care about the work as much as you do, and people who are great, at letting others find their strengths and like do more of what they love and what they're good at. It always produces great work when you're in an environment like that.
Well, I can see why the two founders with FVM, as you grew your career and were mentored by them, they made a great decision in bringing you into the president role and continuing on the agency and finding success, because you have definitely shared some hallmark leadership traits that are obviously leading to success for FVM. So that
Yeah.
is that's outstanding. Great lessons to learn in what you've shared there.
Nice.
Um,
Thanks, John.
yeah. Oh no, of course. Well, I have a lot of respect for you, and I think this is a good reason why, because you do lead with a care that is that's different. And you mentioned another key word in there, and that is the trust. You trust your people to you've hired them to do what they can do, and you've got to put some trust in them for them to feel empowered.
Yep.
And you granting that trust is central, I think, to getting the results that you're looking for. So, what other concepts or thoughts do you have about leadership that we haven't talked about today?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of touched on it, but I do, really feel strongly about just having that humility, of knowing like if I can't do what these people can do, and I want to get out of it, honestly,
That
get out of
definitely
their
comes
way.
across. You've been real clear that okay, that's not your skill set. So
Right. Like, yeah, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at, and that's what makes it fun. And it's just watching, other talented folks just, do what they're best at, what is just making their gift shine, is just so much fun, and that's what it's all about. Another thing I think that Paul and Lori kind of instilled, in me and our whole team is finding, letting people find what they're good at and what they're passionate about. And this isn't just on the creative side, it's on the account side as well. So our team members who help develop the marketing strategy, they project manage, work hand in hand with our creative team and handle deadlines, all that sort of, and that's, sort of where I grew up in the business. And I still do that honestly today,
yeah,
less than I used to, but I think even account folks have areas that they just naturally shine at, whether it's, putting together presentations, or some of our account people are just so great. They just have such empathy that when they work with a client, you can tell like they take on the worries of the client as well. And it just naturally, like, okay, he's really worried about this, so let's make sure we hit that. I love when I hear an account person say that, because it's clear that they're invested. And yes, some are naturally better at that than others. Some are more really good at project management and getting, deadlines and making things happen, and, getting things done with our team. And that's, so we try to like let folks lean into what they're really, sort of good at. Now, you can't, there are some unavoidable tasks, like no one likes doing their timesheet. Like, you still have to do it. So I can't make everything just the things that you like to do. But as much as possible, kind of pointing them in that direction, and letting them be in the space that they're comfortable and they want to grow and they're passionate about. You get so much, better work out of somebody when you let them do what they're good at, as much as you can, realistically.
that's very insightful. Again, I love the concept of humility and knowing that a lot of other people bring talents that you don't, and you try to shine a light on those things, which has got to make people feel proud, feel good about themselves, and try to give you their very best. Which, as a leader, that's what you want. That's all you can ask for from people is do what they can do and give it their best shot to contribute to the team, and
Mm-hmm.
that's valuable for both your clients, but also your team members.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you know what else, John? This is a kind of goes part, in the same vein with this, but like if you mess up, just say sorry.
yeah,
Like, everybody doesn't, and I love, this has always been the environment I've worked in at FEM, is nobody's trying to act like they're smarter than anybody else, or, or somebody's, did something on purpose. Like, oh my gosh, whoops. Like, guys, I totally missed that. Sorry. It goes such a long way just working with other humans when you realize, or you say, oh, you know what? I know I said yesterday that we don't have to have that till Friday, but it just changed. I learned, I'm sorry because I told you different yesterday.
yeah.
Like, it's such a small thing, but it just makes it easier to work with people when you're on the same page, you're all working towards the same goals. People make mistakes, and just like admit it and move on. You don't have to dwell on it or think, oh, he did that on purpose, or it just wastes time, in my opinion.
Well, if I had a different career and a different type of skill set, I would love to work for you because I think you're a great leader and you've exhibited so many interesting traits today and things that are important. And that says something about you and FVM and your creative team. So that is awesome. So what else would you like to share if you have anything or you have any questions for me?
You know what, John? I'm interested just because you have bring the sales side, and I've been fascinated when you and I were talking, a little bit ago, and saying how you identify the right personality for sales, and it truly is like you either have it or you don't, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
you go about finding those folks that you know are going to just be good salespeople?
Yeah, so there's not just one type. Okay, it's the first thing. So some people say, "Oh, you've got to be gregarious, you've got to be outgoing, and then you can be a sales rep." Because that could be it, but it really depends. There's a lot of different types of sales reps. So you've got hunter types of reps that are going out and winning new accounts, and you've got farmer types that are more service oriented and doing that. So one of the things that I look at is you got to look at what the needs are for the role. Okay, and the type of role that they're going to be doing and how they're going to be managing. They've got to have the technical chops if it's a technical sale in some way that they can speak the language. But, for instance, if you have a hunter, um, they have to have a drive to persuade that is very, very strong, a drive to influence, versus somebody that is more of a service rep is it's more important that they have a drive to serve and they
Mm,
care. They almost mother their client, and they've got to make sure nothing goes wrong, and they're on top of it all the time. And if you are in a role um, that is really a need to go out win new accounts, and you have a drive to serve that's stronger than a drive to influence, you're not going to make it because you have to push through those tough things. In sales, I'm sure you've heard there's a lot of, you get a lot of no's, so you got to be willing to push through that. That's where a lot of people, it becomes difficult, and people that are otherwise smart enough and have good communication skills fall down because they can't handle the rejection. And so it narrows, it whittles down the population of people that can be successful to a fairly small number that can be highly successful because you've got to have a drive, you've got to have good follow-up skills, you got to be able to communicate well. The issue about a drive to influence versus the drive to serve,
mhm.
depending on the type of role that you have. So it really, I define what needs to be found, and then I go and look for that, and I look for examples of things that they've done that highlight that, and I also look for potential red flags
Mm,
because if I can find them, I dig into that. Oftentimes, I'll use many different types of assessments that help me in the interviewing process to find the right fit. Um, it's not a certainty. Nothing in life, certainly in sales, is 100%. But in doing that, what you're trying to do is whittle down the errors or the chance for error, and so that you are more likely to find success. Those are some of the thoughts that I have without getting into a specific job or that type
yeah,
of thing. So when you do a lot of the business development as the president,
yeah.
but if you were to hire a salesperson, certainly bring somebody like myself in to help you because you haven't had a lot of experience in hiring,
Yeah.
and typically things go astray when that happens.
Yeah, and it's I've got tons of experience hiring account folks, and who are going to be client facing, managing relationships and project managing, and then creative folks as well. But the whole sales side is just new, and I feel like I personally am more of a service oriented. But now in my role, I'm learning, and I'm not. I've got thicker skin now of like, oh, you don't hear back,
Well,
or
you've probably grown because you've had to. That
right.
might not be your natural tendency. So sometimes we learn because we have no other choice. Otherwise, we won't be successful.
Yeah, yeah, it's really been interesting, and I realize, yeah, I'm more naturally yeah, want to serve like worker bee,
Yeah,
but it has been really interesting and fun. I always enjoy meeting new people and figuring out what makes them tick, and what's their story.
yeah,
I had the opportunity for many years to do that as in buying media, and interfacing with all the media reps. And it was just fun. And I realized, like, other people aren't scary. Like, they all have their own story, and I love to find out what it is. So I think I've tapped into sort of that part of me that just likes connecting with people.
You've
um,
probably had to. So a lot of
yeah,
people that are hired into an account executive type of role that you're hunting,
yeah,
um, they hit a wall, they're not successful, and then they say, I'm out.
yeah.
You didn't really have that option because you had to run a business,
Right.
and you didn't have another option. You couldn't say, I
I'm
want a
out.
safer job that's more comfortable for me. So you were kind of forced into stepping outside of your comfort zone,
Yeah,
and in doing that, you've grown, you've
yeah,
learned, and that's if you're willing to do that, you can learn a lot, including in sales. It's not just its own entity, but that's more kudos to you. You've done that on the leadership side, and you obviously have found success on the sales side too, stepping outside of yourself.
nice. Yeah, well, I can always learn more on the sales side, and I'm always glad I have you as a contact
Yeah.
because I know this is your world. So,
Well, you
yeah.
know I'm here to help. I'm here to help. So, well, this has been really great, Karen. I don't know if you have any other final words of wisdom. I always get a chance to share anything else that you'd like to share about yourself, your experiences, FVM. Are the Phillies going to win the World Series this year?
Oh, it's looking
Whatever.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
could be so.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I appreciate our relationship, and I thank you for coming on board with me today.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it so much, Sean. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Have a great day.
You too.